thrashed it for about 6 months till the big ends went on it.
My first car. Well, I didn't really have a car of my own until I met your dad, and then we shared one.
The first car I owned on my own was a Mini with sliding windows.
My first car was a 1936 Morris 10-4, which I bought at Shelford auction when I was working there for £7, just an impulse buy.
But the first car we had as a team was a minivan.
I used to drive Mum's car a lot, Morris Minor, and then Mum and I actually bought an Austin A35 between us.
And I thrashed it for about 6 months till the big ends went on it.
But the first one I had on my own was a little basic Mini, obviously second hand, I don't know how old it was, but quite a few years old.
And I used to work for Williams Tar at Highley, and they were selling this van off. And we ended up buying it for something like £30, and I used to run around in it when Dad wasn't using it.
Very susceptible to being broken into because of the sliding windows, and it did get stolen when I was working at Manchester Airport, although it was recovered very quickly, which was lucky. They'd obviously just taken it to get home, and no damage.
My very first car of my own that I bought myself was a Vauxhall sports car, two-seater sports car with an electric roof. I thought it was the bee's knees.
The first house was 7 Mona Villas in Lymm.
The first house I owned was in Solihull.
The first house Dad and I bought was before we were married, and we bought number 7 Mona Villas, and it was on the Bridgewater Canal in Lymm.
I joined Britannia Airways in 1971 and did 2 summers out of Manchester, and then moved to Birmingham in the autumn of 72, where we rented a house, 6 of us rented a house, big house on Homer Road in Solihull.
We bought it in 1967, and we spent quite a bit of time doing it up, but we didn't move in till after we were married. And when we came back off our honeymoon, we had no cooker, no carpets, no nothing. We had to go to Mama Kay's to have all our meals for a few weeks until we got Uncle Woolley and Lenny, I think, bought us a cooker, which was £28, which I thought was wonderful.
It was a semi-detached house right on the bank of the Bridgewater Canal.
It was a semi-detached, 3 bedrooms, needed completely renovating, but we bought it for £2,000.
So I thought paying rent was a bit of a waste of money, so suggested to Ida and Anne that we bought a house between us.
So I loved it. We had a big garden and a garage. Our rates were £18 a year, so you can tell how things have changed.
It was a nice starter house. It was freezing cold because there's no central heating in it.
And Mrs. Clark, that owned the house, she owned next door, she let us have it where we just paid her our mortgage direct to her, so there was no interest on our mortgage, which really, in a way, set us up for life.
We couldn't get a mortgage. I went to my building society and asked to see the manager. And when they asked why, I said, I'd like to see him about a mortgage. And they said, no point, we don't give mortgages to women.
Remember once we opened the oven door and switched the oven on to warm the kitchen up a bit.
We did finally manage to get it. We went on holiday, the 3 of us together, and we managed to get a mortgage. We met 2 guys. One of them worked in insurance, and they said, we could get you a mortgage if you take out an insurance policy each. And there was lots of umming and ahhing and people saying, oh, you can't do that. So I rang the insurance ombudsman, and he said it was a fantastic policy. It was open-ended. We could cash it in when we wanted. So we went ahead. We could only have the mortgage in one name, so it was in my name. And then we had a legal agreement drawn up between the 3 of us.
But every time we paid £20 a month off the mortgage, there was no interest, so it was coming off the full amount.
The house was a semi-detached 3-bedroom, about 5 minutes from the airport, which was fantastic. Had a garage, which was very handy, especially when I bought my brand new MG Midget. So I was able to keep it in a lock-up garage.
We were there for About 2.5 years, until you, very famously, fell in the Bridgewater Canal when you were 18 months old.
So it was, yes, it was a nice little house. Had a lounge, which was quite a reasonable size. We had a big settee in there, which you could actually sleep on, so that was an extra bed. And then a kitchen diner. We started off with all second-hand stuff. We're thrilled to bits to get a second-hand twin tub and second-hand cooker, and their mum supplied us with a dining table and chairs.
And I had to jump in after you and rescue you. And it frightened the daylights out of me. So that night when Dad came home and knew what had happened, we put the house up for sale straight away and we sold the house.
I'll just tell you, when we first moved in, one of our captains, he had longish grey hair. How he got away with it, I don't know. It was longer than was allowed. And he looked a bit of a rogue, and he offered to lend Ida and Anne a brass bedstead each, because he knew where to store them, and he thought it might be handy for them. So he turned up one week with this brass bedstead on top of his car, set that up. A few days later came back with another brass bedstead and set that up. And of course we were all working nights and all hours that God sent. And we'd been there about a fortnight, and the lady across the road saw one of us, and she saw one of us in uniform, and she said, I'm so pleased to see you're in uniform. She said, we'd no idea what was going on there, because what we seen was this man arrive with 2 brass bedsteads, and girls were always answering the door in their dressing gowns.
Favourite band growing up? Well, I think Elvis Presley, and my favourite singer was Cliff Richards. Thought I was going to marry him.
My favourite band growing up was definitely the Beatles. I remember going to see them live at Northwich Memorial Hall in 1963, and what a fantastic night that was. They really put everything into it, and sweat was rolling down their faces.
But the Beatles, anything from the 60s, I thought were absolutely brilliant, and I still think they're brilliant even today.
My favourite actor when I was a child was probably Danny Kaye. Was fantastic in their films, and I love Norman Wisdom as well in his films. But I suppose John Wayne was one of the all-time favourites.
Favourite actor? I think I had 2 really. Clint Eastwood. He was in a cowboy series called where he played a character called Rowdy Yates. I thought he was gorgeous.
My favourite actor, well, it's an actress really, was Doris Day. I thought she was named after me, so I think that's why I liked her. Made my name a bit more modern and acceptable.
The other one who I thought was fabulous was Gregory Peck. I think they were on a par really, although maybe Gregory Peck.
I think The Pyjama Game was one of my favourite films.
It was like things like the older movies, like the Doris Day ones, and anything with Gregory Peck in.
Favourite film was definitely Zulu. I love that film.
Favourite film growing up? I'm struggling to think of one, to be quite honest.
Other films, I used to get on our backs and go to Lynn Picture House and see all the Elvis films when we were 12 or 13, and they were really good. Just park our bikes outside, pay a shilling to get in. When we came out, the bikes were still there, and we used to ride home or go to the chip shop and get a bag of chips for 4p.
Yeah, I can't think. Pink Panther, and then latterly when the airplane ones came out, the funny ones, I enjoyed those. But I can't think of an all-time favourite film when I was growing up.
Standout memories from my youth.
One standout memory is obviously probably for everybody is the first day at work, and started work, went to Chelford auction. 3
standout happy memories from my 20s.
Well, I think discovering boys was quite a good standout memory.
One of the lads, Ian Davis, was showing me round.
Well, I could be very easily say the 3 were the births of Alistair, Kirsty and James.
Finding that I was quite fanciable to some of them, but not all, not the ones I liked anyway.
I felt very blessed to become an auntie.
Next thing, this Mr. Schiller came blustering up like a bloody sergeant major. He always carried a little stick.
The next thing I think would have been joining Britannia Airways, because I'd applied for years to various airlines to try and become an air hostess. I decided that was what I wanted to do.
I remember I really liked a lad called Bob.
And instead of saying, "Oh, good morning, guy, welcome to Frank Marshall and Company," he's just shouting at me, "Hey, you, go and book the poultry in."
I got the job because they were interviewing in Stockport, and there was a postal strike at the time, so I didn't have to send an application form in with a photograph. I never seemed to be able to get a decent photo. So I went along and had my interview, which didn't last very long, and so I thought that was that, and they'd be saying no thank you. They asked me to sit down outside, wait outside, and a few minutes later they called me back in and said, "We'd like to offer you the job." I was absolutely amazed and thrilled.
And he loved cycling, and I got my mum to buy me a Pink Witch bike so I could chase him round on his bike. So that was a standout memory.
So that was being dropped into the deep end of it. I didn't know a light Sussex from a Rhode Island Red.
And then a few weeks later I was on a coach going down to Luton Airport to do my training, and that was where I met my friend Anne. And I've made some wonderful friends through that job.
Another favourite memory is always Christmas Day, I suppose. A lovely lunch that Mum used to put on, turkey and all the trimmings, and everybody there. That was nice.
Another outstanding memory would be working in Yemen, because that was so incredibly different to anything I'd ever known before.
One of my other standout memories was one Christmas Day opening a long, narrow cardboard box, and inside it was a bolt-action Webley and Scott 410 shotgun.
We met quite a few expats and people who were working at the embassy, and then we met the locals. We met used to have a Yemeni steward on each flight, so we got to know the stewards, but we also got to know the head of Save the Children, who always carried a gun, and we were convinced he was an ex-army officer, and we pretty certain he was undercover MI5 or something, I don't know, that's what we all thought.
Another one of the presents was a box of cartridges for it, so that was fantastic.
But through him I met some of the children, and I used to write to a little boy for quite a while. But it was an amazing experience, and I got to fly in a DC-3 at Dakota over the Queen of Marib's Dam, and the flying was great fun. We used to be able to sit on the flight deck a lot.
Okay, imagine giving a 12-year-old boy now a shotgun for Christmas. That wouldn't happen very often now, would it?
That was an incredibly happy memory. We just had a fantastic group of people down there that we all seemed to gel with, and fascinating country, and so sad to see it the way it is now.
Lots of young adult memories, which were all good and positive, and I enjoyed my youth. It was great.